I want to share with you the night I essentially destroyed my marriage. At least in the eyes of everyone else, in Minnesota where it's freezing outside. There's nothing better than spilling your guts over a glass or three of wine. My name is Melina and I'm 34 years old. In 2019, I went to my friend Kaylee's housewarming party and met my husband, Derek. She had recently purchased this adorable starter home, and I recall thinking how envious I was since I was still living in this expensive apartment with a dirty roommate. At first impression, Derek appeared to be a tall, somewhat lanky man who spent the entire night drinking the same beer in the corner. He was definitely not my typical type, you know. I usually went for the guys at the gym who had fancy cars and dubious credit ratings, but I was drawn to Derek for some reason. Perhaps it was his lack of effort. Or perhaps it was Kaylee's admission that he worked as a senior software developer at a computer business. Not that I was a gold digger, I had a real estate profession of my own, however. It was refreshing to meet someone with real work prospects after dating guys who couldn't keep their lights on. That evening, we began discussing the most improbable topics, instead of just making me fake laugh as I typically do on first dates. His dry style of humor made me chuckle like a proud father. He showed me images of his cat, Darwin, and told me about him. I'm more of a dog person, but it was sort of cute. After that, things proceeded rather quickly. Unlike my ex-boyfriends, Derek organized dates rather than just relaxing with Netflix. He took me to expensive restaurants, but initially he split the bill strangely, which really irritated me. For example, don't expect a girl to pay for your date. That was the subject of our first major argument. And I may have insulted him by pointing out that my ex-boyfriend Blake usually paid. Without making it seem strange, Derek stayed. But that touched a chord. He eventually stopped acting strangely around money. After 6 months, we moved in together and I began to see the big picture. His flat had white walls, very little furniture, and framed Star Wars posters as his concept of decor. I realized I had a lot of work ahead of me. I began modestly, adding a lovely area rug here and a few toss cushions there. Derek's face would get pinched when he looked at the price tags, but he remained silent, at least not initially. I chose to ignore him when he made insignificant remarks about how his old couch was good, and that we didn't need ornamental bowls that were just there. I mean, I was the one who made our apartment appear to be inhabited by real adults. A year after we first met, we were married. Derek kept bringing up the budget every 5 minutes, but I made sure the wedding was gorgeous. Even worse was his father, Richard, who had the audacity to propose that we get married in the courts in order to save money. I suppose Derek received a promotion as if the first year of marriage had been good. Additionally, we purchased this adorable suburban home because of the poor real estate market and, to be honest, because I was sick of putting up with finicky clients. I took a vacation from the industry. It was kind of Derek to say that we could get by on his income alone. After that, I became pregnant with Emma. Derek was thrilled about it, even if it wasn't intended. Me? Although I was afraid of what would happen to my body during pregnancy, it wasn't that horrible. The majority of the 25 pounds I acquired quickly disappeared. But then strange things began to happen. Derek had a budgeting obsession. Each Target run became a questioning. Do we really need another throw blanket? Didn't you just buy candles last week? It was exhausting. Not to mention how he reacted when he learned that I had kept my Nordstrom card. You would assume I was guilty of something. His father also became active, frequently visiting with papers about retirement savings and financial planning. I'm in my 30s. Like, who considers retirement? Derek's pals weren't any better either. When I was around, especially after I quit my job to care for Emma, they would make these little comments about trophy wives. Jake, Derek's best friend, said at one of our barbecues that I was fortunate to be living the good life when their wives were all working full-time. I snapped, told him exactly where he could vent, and reminded him that having a child is more difficult than spending all day by yourself playing on a computer. After that, Derek became quiet and strange, and his friends stopped visiting him as frequently. In hindsight, I suppose that's when things truly started to go south. Derek said he had to ensure our future, so he began working later. Please. He was only trying to avoid coming home since he was aware that I would confront him about his passive-aggressive remarks regarding my purchases. He would prefer to hide in the office than face any conflict. However, would you like to know what actually caused everything to catch fire at Kale's house? It was just another girls' night. How could I have known it would ruin my entire life? Derek and I had a heated argument that morning regarding my Sephora order, so there I was at Kay's. 3 glasses of wine in and feeling particularly spicy. I want to appear well for you. So I'm sorry, as if it weren't years away. He had made a deal out of the fact that we had to stay within the budget. Since Emma might want to attend college eventually, Kaylee had recently renovated her kitchen, which was stunning with its white cabinets and gold hardware. Indeed, I might have been a touch envious when Derek rejected my remodeling suggestions, claiming that our kitchen was already fully functioning. She had brought out this expensive wine that she had received from her lady's boyfriend. As we were seated at her new island, that ought to have been my first warning to be careful with my words. Madison, Kale's cousin, was also present, and it's well known that she can't maintain a secret survive. I have no idea what became of him. Like a true housewife, I swirled my wine while I spoke. You know, he was entertaining once. Spreadsheets and retirement plans are the norm now. Last week, he actually created a PowerPoint on our spending patterns. A PowerPoint? Who does that? As a buddy, Kay was nodding along. Madison, however, was wearing this expression. Derek's just being responsible, she said, sounding proper and as though she wasn't drinking too much. There are men who genuinely care about the future of their families. I was annoyed by that, and I don't either. He acts like a superhero at work, but I'm the one raising our daughter. Do you remember what he told me yesterday? He requested that I begin purchasing generic baby wipes. Generic. For example, I would allow my infant to get diaper rash save $2. Kay then posed the query that made all the difference. Real talk, Maddie. Do you actually love him? Like, really love him? She added, leaning in with a serious expression. Perhaps it was the wine, the argument that morning, Madison's critical expression, or simply years of holding back. But I did it. He's not the love of my life, and to be honest, I don't believe he ever was. I stated aloud, you know, he's all right. He's steady and gets along well with Emma, but my life's love, please. Blake was most likely that person, but he was too messy to make it work. Simply put, Derek is dependable and safe, much like a Honda Civic. You could hear Kay's eyes machine running as the room became quite quiet. Madison was texting Derek already, and I could tell because her face was stuck in this beautiful O of shock. However, I had a streak. What's the worst thing, you know? He makes an excruciating effort, asking me about my day constantly, organizing these inexpensive date nights and creating these tiny spreadsheets for everything. It's draining. I sometimes long for the days when Blake and I were just passionate and uncalculating. Purchasing name brand cereal without a coupon is Derek's definition of spontaneity. No one else laughed, but I did. Kay was staring at me as if she was undecided about whether to slap or hug me. I was too inebriated to notice that Madison had vanished into the restroom with her phone. As soon as I entered my house that evening, I realized something was amiss. Except for Derek's phone's glow in the living room, all the lights were out. He was sitting there looking at his screen as if it had the universe's secrets while wearing his tattered old hoodie, the one I've been trying to get rid of for months. Have a good time? He asked in a very quiet and composed voice. I saw that his eyes were crimson at that point. Derek has never cried. Not even during Emma's birth. I tried to act calm, but my stomach was churning. What's wrong? Madison had told him how much. He showed me the text thread on his phone. Bless her messy heart. Madison had written him a list of all the things I had stated in bullet points. Who does that? At a wine night, who really takes notes? A Civic from Honda. He started by concentrating on it, which, when you think about it, was rather amusing. Is that how it is? Do you see me? I sat down on our expensive West Elm couch, which I had persuaded him was an investment item, and attempted to laugh it off. Faltering a little, Derek wouldn't have it. Baby, come on, I was just drunk and venting. You know how girls get on wine nights. I swear he seemed taller somehow as he stood up. He began to pace, still holding his phone like it was evidence in a murder case, and said, No, Meline, don't do that. Don't try to minimize this. Blake, you're still thinking about Blake? The guy who borrowed $2,000 from you and disappeared to Vegas? I could feel my face getting warm. That's not fair. Blake had demons, but at least he knew how to live in the moment. When's the last time you did anything spontaneous? His voice trembled slightly as he asked. Spontaneous? I'm sorry, I'm too busy trying to build a stable life for our family to be spontaneous. I'm sorry, I care about our future instead of maxing out credit cards on designer shoes. I was also quite irate at this point. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Even though the liquor was clouding my judgment, I persisted. Everything is about money with you. Budget this, savings that, God forbid I want things, he chuckled, but it wasn't a joyful laugh. Nice things, Meline, you spent $600 at Sephora last week. We have a mortgage, we have a daughter, but sure. Let's talk about Blake and his demons and how he was the love of your life. I should have stopped talking. Something inside of me wouldn't stop talking, even though I knew it. At least Blake never made me feel bad about wanting things. At least he understood that life isn't all about spreadsheets and retirement plans. For a minute, Derek just stood there and looked at me as if I had never been there before. I was genuinely alarmed by his next statement. I need to call my dad now. Allow me to introduce you to my father-in-law, Richard. Imagine a judgmental box that embodies all of the boomer stereotypes about millennials and their spending patterns. Since our initial meeting, he has been giving me the side eye. Most likely because he saw me looking at the price of his watch. I would never hear the end of it if Derek phoned him about this at midnight right now, I said. Don't you dare call your dad, possibly slurring my words but attempting to sound tough. This is between us, isn't it? Because it seems like it was between you, Kaylee, Madison first, and apparently Blake. Derek's voice was very quiet. Because it seems like it was between you, Kaylee, and Madison first, and apparently Blake. He picked up his pillow from the couch, which I had taught him to keep there during TV time so it wouldn't ruin the aesthetics of our bedroom, and headed for the guest room at this moment. I can't even look at you, though. You're simply going to flee. Derek, you're so grown up. I called after him, but he just kept walking. I heard the guest room door close, and then nothing. I stood there in our perfect living room with its perfectly coordinated throw pillows and artfully arranged coffee table books, feeling like my whole world was tilting sideways. The worst part, a tiny voice in my head was wondering if this meant I could finally read, decorate without having to justify every purchase. Emma started crying. Probably woken up by our fighting, I waited for Derek to come help. He always handles the midnight wake-ups because he knows I need my beauty sleep. But the guest room door stayed shut. Fine, I'd do it myself, show him what a dedicated mother I am. But as I climbed the stairs, my wine-soaked brain started spinning. What if he really did call his dad? What if he told his friends? What if he started thinking about divorce? I couldn't let that happen. Not with the housing market the way it is. Plus, who gets custody these days? I'd seen enough TikToks about toxic divorce battles to know I needed to get ahead of this. I needed a plan. Standing there in Emma's doorway, watching her settle back to sleep without me even having to pick her up, thank God for self-soothing, I started forming one. Derek might be hurt now, but he's also predictable. And predictable men, they're easy to manage if you know what you're doing. The next morning was rough. My head was pounding and Derek had already left for work. He'd never left without saying goodbye before, not even during our worst fights about my online shopping. There was no coffee made either. His weird little love language thing he'd been doing since we started dating, pretty much. I called in sick to my yoga class. No way was I facing those judgmental suburban moms today. I started damage control. First step, check social media. Sure enough, Madison had already changed her Facebook status to feeling disappointed with Derek, commenting a simple thanks for telling me. The comments were filling up with vague supportive messages. You know the type, stay strong and some people never change, like, could they be more obvious? Then came the text from Richard, Derek's dad, we need to talk. For words that made my stomach drop, I left him on read power move, you know? I spent the morning stress cleaning and planning. Derek's biggest weakness, he hates conflict, like he physically can't handle it. Remember how he proposed? He wrote it in a PowerPoint because he was too nervous to say it out loud. Sweet at the time, kind of pathetic in hindsight, but useful. Now, I ordered his favorite takeout for dinner. That fancy ramen place he loves but always says is too expensive. Had it delivered right when I knew he'd be getting home. I also put on that blue sundress he bought me for our anniversary. The one I said was too basic but kept for emergencies like this. I even took Emma to my mom's so we could talk without distractions. When Derek walked in, he looked terrible. Like he hadn't slept at all, his eyes were all puffy. And he was wearing that awful plaid shirt I've been trying to donate to Goodwill for months. But he stopped short when he saw the ramen. And me in the dress. "What's this?" he asked. "Do something." "Nice. I thought we should talk," I said, trying to sound all vulnerable and stuff about last night. "About everything." He sat down but didn't touch the food. "Your dad called me today." Of course he did. Richard never could mind his own business. "What? Did he say that he always knew you were using me, that he tried to warn me before the wedding?" Derek's voice was flat, and he gave me images of your old Instagram posts about Blake. "All right. That was low, Derek, who reads 3 years' worth of social media. Those postings are old news, and I was naive and young at the time." I reached for his hand across the table, and he didn't pull away, which was encouraging. "I said some pretty dumb things last night, and I didn't mean any of it. You were 29, Mel. Can we concentrate on now?" "I was just rambling, baby. You know how I when I drink wine. Remember at our wedding when I told your aunt that her outfit looked like a couch cover? That nearly made her smile. You compared me to a Honda Civic, and I had to suppress a giggle because, really, it's still kind of hilarious. You mentioned that Blake was your true love. So it's time to bring out the big guns." I got up and walked around the table, sitting in his lap like I used to when we were dating. "You know what the love of my life looks like? It's you walking Emma around the nursery at 3 in the morning, while singing that strange mid-fight song because it's the only thing that makes her feel calm. It's you making me coffee every morning just the way I like it, even when we're fighting. You know how fake deep everyone gets on wine nights." I was just playing into it. I felt him soften a little. Sometimes men are so easy, just stroke their ego and get physically close. "But you told Madison." "I told Madison would make me sound cool and rebellious." I cut him off, running my fingers through his hair. "Red alert, abort mission. Time to switch tactics. Is that what you want?" I pulled back, letting my eyes well up a little. Thank God for waterproof mascara. To split up our family, to only see Emma on the weekends. To become one of those depressed divorced dads living in a one-bedroom apartment. Low blow. Maybe effective, definitely. "My dad thinks I should talk to a lawyer," he muttered into my shoulder. "Derek, you're my husband, the father of my child, and my best friend, okay?" That last one was pushing it. Kale is my best friend, of course, but men love hearing that stuff. I watched the fight drain out of him. "No," he said quietly, "that's not what I want." I pressed my advantage, letting a tear fall. "I just don't understand why you'd say those things about Blake." "About me being safe," he said, drawing me closer. "Because I'm an idiot," I said, giving him my most vulnerable look. "Because sometimes I get insecure and say dumb things to sound cool in front of other people. You know what's really safe? You're not safe, Derek. You're solid." He said, "All right, your dad showed me your credit card statements." Oh, not good. "The ones you said you canceled, the Nordstrom one, the socks one." I drew back a little, my mind racing, but I was able to explain. $8,000 in 3 months. "All right, damage control time. It was for us, for the house, and for Emma's clothes. Emma doesn't need Gucci sneakers, she's too young, but they were on sale." Not my best argument, I'll admit, he said, gently pushing me off his lap. "I'm trying to be rational," he said. And instead of leaving, he rubbed his temples. "At last," he stated, "I believe we need counseling." "Counseling? Great. Therapists adore me. I can cry at their command. I've read enough self-help books to understand their language. And it would demonstrate to everyone my dedication to making things right." "I'll do anything to make this right," I murmured, patting his arm. "Whatever you need," I added. And I kind of meant it. I'd worked too hard to allow one wasted night to wreck everything. And I would do anything to maintain my life looking exactly the way I wanted it to. The house, the stability, the image. Derek's phone buzzed, likely his father trying to poison him against me once more, and I saw him grimace as he read the message. "Jake says we need to talk. So he wants me to come over," he said. I could not allow him to be around his buddies at this time. They would ruin all of my hard work. I leaned closer, letting my dress light up a bit, saying, "Baby, please stay here with me. Let's order dessert and really talk this through." Derek has always been weak for my legs, which is why I spend so much money on my gym membership. "Your friends will always be biased against me," I said, toying with his collar. "They don't understand our relationship. What we have is complicated and profound. It's not something you can explain to single guys like Jake. I held my breath while he typed on his phone after he paused. I'm working things out at home, man, not tonight. Victory. The remainder of the evening was draining, a great deal of emotional work confirming his emotions, while quietly shifting the blame, offering an apology without accepting guilt, and bringing up our past together. He was half convinced that he had overreacted to what was just drunk girl talk by the time we went to bed. So I lay there making plans while he slept. The counseling thing might work out well for me. I'd show up looking professional, but not to perfect. You don't want to come across as high maintenance in therapy, and I'd talk about how I push people away when they get too close and how I'm afraid of being vulnerable. Therapists love that stuff. The real issue would be repairing the damage with his family and friends, but I had time. So I would win them back gradually by hosting dinner parties, showing up at their events looking supportive and devoted, and playing the reformed wife who learned her lesson. The credit cards were a problem, but I could handle that. Return a few items, lay low for a while. Maybe even let him think he's helping me budget. Men love feeling needed like that. The next few weeks were like walking on eggshells made of diamonds. Expensive and delicate, I had to play everything just right. The first order of business was dealing with Madison, the little snitch. I took her to lunch, just us girls at this overpriced cafe she loves. I ordered a salad I didn't eat. I had to keep up appearances and went to work. I feel terrible about what happened, I said, pushing around a $22 pile of kale. I was in such a dark place that night, work stress, mom guilt, all of it just came out wrong. Madison's one of those people who desperately wants to believe the best in everyone. By the time we finished our bland green juice, she was practically apologizing to me for misunderstanding the situation. I posted a cute selfie of us with some caption about sisters by marriage. Friends by choice, barf, but effective. Derek's friends were trickier, Jake especially. He's always been too smart for his own good and started sending Derek all these articles about financial abuse and gaslighting. Like, excuse me, just because I appreciate the finer things in life doesn't make me an abuser. But I had an ace up my sleeve. Jake's girlfriend, Sarah, sweet girl, terrible taste in clothes. I started inviting her shopping, offering gentle suggestions about what might look good on her. A little Kardashian-style makeover never hurt anyone, right? Soon she was defending me to Jake, talking about how misunderstood I am. The real challenge was Richard, my father-in-law. That man's like a dog with a bone when he thinks he's right. He keeps sending these long emails about protecting his assets and thinking of Emma's future, as if I'm not the one making sure that child looks Instagram ready at all times. I tried my usual tactics with Richard, being sweet and playing the reformed spendthrift, but nothing worked. So I switched strategies and started talking about moving across the country for Derek's career. Just subtle hints at first about tech opportunities in California. You should have seen how fast Richard changed his tune when he realized he might lose access to his granddaughter. The counseling sessions were actually kind of fun in a twisted way. Our therapist, Dr. Lisa, was this earthy, crunchy type who wore Birkenstocks with business casual, easy to read, easier to manipulate. I'd cry at just the right moments and talk about my abandonment issues from my dad leaving. True story, actually useful for once. I'd push people away before they can leave me, I'd say, dabbing my eyes with a tissue when I said those things about Derek. It was really about my own fears. Derek ate it up. Men love thinking they can fix and Dr. Lisa was all about creating a safe space for vulnerability. Please. The only thing I'm vulnerable to is a good Nordstrom sale. The best part? Derek started feeling guilty, like actually apologizing to me sometimes. I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't talk to me about your feelings, he'd say. Or maybe I have been too focused on money instead of our emotional connection. I mean, is this the man who should be divorcing me is instead trying to be more understanding of my emotional needs? I even managed to swing a weekend spa retreat out of it for healing purposes, obviously. But here's the thing no one else gets. I do care about Derek in my way. He's a good dad, he's stable, and yeah, maybe he's not the love of my life. But who actually ends up with that person anyway? That's some Disney princess nonsense. Real life is about making smart choices, and Derek is definitely a smart choice. 6 months later, and things are actually better than before. I've got Derek thinking our rough patch made us stronger. He's even eased up on the budget talks, probably afraid of triggering my emotional insecurities or whatever Dr. Lisa calls them. The credit cards are still there, just better hidden. I've got a whole system now: personal mailbox, separate email, alerts going to a secret folder. Is it sneaky? Maybe, but it keeps the peace. And isn't that what marriage is all about? Last week, Derek's mom asked me how we turned things around so completely. I gave her some line about doing the work and choosing love every day. She actually teared up. Meanwhile, I was wearing a $400 sweater I told Derek was from Target. Life's all about balance, right? Jake's still suspicious, but what's he going to do? Derek's happier now than he was before the whole drunk confession thing. I make sure of that. I dress up more at home, listen to his boring work stories, and let him think he's helping me with my spending issues. Small price to pay for keeping my life exactly how I want it. The funny thing is, sometimes I catch myself almost believing it all. Like last night, watching Derek read Emma her bedtime story, doing all the silly voices just to make her laugh. For a second, I thought maybe this is what love really is. Then I remembered the shoe bag I have hidden in my trunk and I had to laugh at myself. But here's my secret: I'm actually proud of how I handled everything. Think about it, most women would have lost it all: the house, the lifestyle, the perfect-looking family. Not me. I took a total disaster and turned it into an opportunity to make my marriage even more secure. Derek trusts me more now than ever. His family thinks I'm this reformed character who learned from her mistakes. And I've still got my safety net of hidden credit cards if things ever go south. Is it manipulation? Sure. But show me a successful marriage that doesn't involve a little strategic management. At least I'm honest with myself about it. Besides, Derek's not exactly suffering here. He gets to be the hero who stood by his troubled wife, the understanding husband who helped her through her emotional crisis. Men love that narrative, and I get to keep shopping at Nordstrom. Everybody wins. The other night, we were at this dinner party with his work friends, and someone made a joke about how marriage is about compromise. If they only knew. But watching Derek defend me to his skeptics, optical friends, seeing how proud he was to show off our stronger than ever relationship, I realized something. Maybe love isn't about soul-consuming passion or fairy tale endings. Maybe it's about being smart enough to protect what you have, whatever it takes. So yeah, Derek might not be the love of my life, but he's what I chose. And I'm keeping him one calculated move at a time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go return this Gucci bag before he gets home. Got to keep up appearances, right?